Hello and welcome to this week's episode where I'm joined by Pauline Frommer, the editorial director and the name behind the world-famous Frommer's Travel Guides, and also host of the Frommer's Travel Show. Pauline has been at the forefront of helping travelers travel more frequently, more intrinsically, and more frugally. And today we're going to talk all about the travel guides, travel in the modern era, the challenges facing Frommer's, her travel podcast, of course, and delve into some much needed wanderlust for travel in the future. She really is a wholesale name for the podcast. It was great to have her on. She's lovely. We exchanged travel ideas, stories, tips, and everything else related to travel that you can imagine. A great hour. Tune in, soak it in, drink it in. You'll love it. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you're on YouTube, or if you're listening to this, hit that 5 stars for a review, and a written one is great too. Let's dive in to a world of travel and what it's really like to travel like a local. Here's Pauline Frommer. Pauline, thanks for coming onto the podcast. Please tell the listeners where you're based and also how are you doing?
I'm doing okay. It's a strange time in the world, but otherwise I'm doing okay. And I'm based in New York City. Beautiful, safe, wonderful New York City.
The dream city. My favorite city actually in the world.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, I write the Frommer's Guidebook to New York City, so she's my muse. I'm constantly exploring the city.
Well, we're coming on to that book and the articles related to that as well later in the show. But give us a sense first, because I think what's interesting about you and your story is that your huge name, is it Frommer's, yeah? And the last name is like huge in travel. But I do wonder that the new generation coming through, if they're as aware of you and your brand as well. So I'm going to kick off with, can you give us a bit of history about your name and also travel growing up as a child?
Sure,
and
sure.
where was that as well?
Yeah. Well, I grew up in New York City. I was born during a taxi strike, so I was almost born on the subway. I don't think you can get more New York than that. And my story and the story of the brand starts with my father, Arthur. My father, Arthur, was the son of 2 immigrants. He was born into the Great Depression, and his mother spoke Russian. His father spoke German, and that became really important to his story because though he went to law school, something happened to him the day after he graduated that didn't happen to anybody else in his class, in his law school class. He was the son of poor immigrants, so unlike everyone else, he got drafted into the army the day after he graduated to fight in the Korean War.
Right.
Everybody else in his class, they had connections.
Sure.
And so none of them were drafted. He was. But because he was the son of immigrants and had learned Russian and German, instead of being sent to Korea, he got sent to Europe because they wanted him to be a spy, basically.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, they thought that if the East was going to invade the West, there would be an uptick in food production. So my father sat in an office in West Berlin talking to people who'd come over from the East. This is before there was a wall. And they would tell him how many loaves of bread were baked and how many chickens were slaughtered. And he had to keep these big lists because they thought there would be an uptick in food production if the East was going to invade the West. Whenever he had a free moment, he started traveling. And to him, it was a miracle that he could travel. This was the 1950s, and back in those days, if you weren't rich, you were not traveling abroad. Sure. And a lot of his fellow GIs didn't travel. They were nervous to leave the base because you have to remember this is right after World War II.
Yeah.
A lot of Europe was still in rubble, and his fellow GIs thought, if I don't have money, I may not be able to travel well or safely. And they would pepper him with questions when he came back to the base, and he thought, well, maybe I'll write a little book for my fellow GIs. This was something he'd never done before. He just graduated from law school, and he self-published the book. And it came out the day he left the army, sold out overnight. He had to go back to press on it. He actually practiced law for a full year before he had the thought, well, wow, maybe if this worked for GIs, civilians would be interested too.
Hmm.
So he went running back to Europe to update his little book, and he published it under the name Europe on $5 a Day, and it became the best-selling guidebook of all time and changed his life. And so after that, he did books to other places. He actually was a lawyer and a publisher for
Hmm.
about a decade, but then the books became too big. And so I started traveling with him and my mother, who eventually wrote the sightseeing portions of the book. I started traveling with them when I was 4 months old.
Okay.
Oh,
Quite early on.
quite early on. So my big problem when I travel is I have deja vu
Of
wherever I
course. Yeah.
go, and I don't know if it's actual deja vu or not.
That's amazing. And I
Yeah.
think everyone knows that book, The $5 a Day in Europe. I think that is obviously, it should be well known because obviously it's the best selling book. And I think what's quite interesting back in those days, the 50s, you kind of think our generation, your generation, my generation, we think, oh, what is it like to travel in the 50s in Europe? As you say, after the Second World War, um, I don't know, is it as idyllic as you think it is, or is it actually still under reconstruction? Is it some
Well,
places untouched, you know?
there were things going wrong.
Yeah.
There's a wonderful a book of history. Oh, damn, I'm forgetting the name, but it talks about what Europe was like after World War II. And you have to remember, in places like France, certain people collaborated with the German
The
government,
Vichy.
others
Yeah,
didn't.
of
And
course.
so there was a lot of anger and tension in
Hmm.
France between people. Whereas in England, everybody had stood up to the Nazis. So
Hmm.
it was a different kind of feeling to go there. You had Franco in Spain.
Franco,
So
yeah.
that was a kind of an ugly place to visit because
Mm,
of it was under a terrible dictatorship. So those were the negatives, but this was the beginning of the jet age. This is the
yes.
first time it was or easier, to get to Europe. And Americans at that point had far more disposable income
Hmm.
than Europeans did. So it kind of was the best time for his book to come out because it was a great time to be carrying American dollars, US dollars, I should say, to a Canadian.
Yeah, because I grew up in the UK, right? So I hear some of these stories from my dad's side. I guess he would have been a step grandparent, but he was much
Oh,
older. He only died last year, and he was 95.
sorry. Wow, my
Um,
father died at 95 too in
okay,
November.
yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
But I loved hearing his story about he was based in Norfolk. So Norfolk, where I'm from, is where all the air bases are.
Mm.
Honington, Coltishall, Lakenham now as well. And he would describe the first time he saw Americans, and he's like, he's never seen anything like it. They're obviously black people as well. He'd never seen a black person before, and he said they had
Mm.
money, they had like a nice confidence about them. He's just a farmer growing up in Norfolk, right? So he wasn't in the war from a military point of view, but he was there with the military day to day with the farm, right? And
Right.
he just he'd tell all these stories about, yeah, this is the first time I was 15, and I've seen these people come rolling through town, they're collecting bread and eggs and stuff, and yeah, he
Yeah.
would just say this is a completely different world back then because you don't actually know what your cousin is like in the US because you might read about it, you might hear on the radio, but actually seeing it in real life, completely different
Right.
vibe. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. A very different time, I think. My father has a photo of himself as a young GI in the middle of St. Mark's Square in Venice.
Oh,
And
wow.
there's nobody around him except pigeons. You know,
Yeah.
could you imagine that today? No, of course
No,
not.
absolutely not. Oh, wow. Okay. And let's go to your travels as a
Sure.
youngster before we get into the more adult stuff. So you're traveling a lot as a child, I'd imagine. Was there any
Oh,
one
yeah.
trip that really like spoke out to you, maybe like in the memory, or you just remember like, oh, I had a great time there, or was there like one place that maybe triggered something?
I was always thrilled when we got to go to Copenhagen
Ah,
because I loved the Tivoli Gardens as a kid. To me, that was always the highlight. And we went to Europe every summer because every summer they would research the book. So we were there for 4 months or so updating the book. And we had, at that point, he had friends in every city who I considered aunts and uncles. So to me, the world feels very much like a big family. Um, And it's an interesting time to have that point of view about humanity, because I feel like nationalism is on the rise in
It is.
so many different places. And to me, that's the important lesson of travel, which is that we have far more in common than we have that keeps us apart. And, I think if more people traveled more widely, we wouldn't be in the pickle we are in now.
Yeah, it's come full circle, really, isn't it? Weirdly.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's strange how it comes back round. You kind of think, well, I've been guilty of this. I think, oh, well, no, we'll never go back to those days again. But that was in the 30s, and then here we are today, and it feels
No, yeah.
like we are. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I'm finding it to be a very frightening time, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah. I think there's always hope. I think that's the
Yes,
key. And I think you're
definitely.
right about travel. That's why we do the podcast, I'd imagine, is because we want to get people out there and, in different cultures, not just the same culture, learn about people, the way they live, the way they think, because it can
Yeah,
only
and you
enhance your life, surely.
right, and you asked me earlier, do young people know our guidebooks? That's our big challenge, and the pitch I always try and make is, look, you can get information from some influencer online, but they've probably been paid to gush.
Yes.
So our only client is our reader. So we're giving impartial advice. And our advice is really all encompassing. We're telling you about the history, about the culture, about the etiquette. When you pick up a guidebook, it really does guide you in a very fundamental way. And that's why I think there still is a place for them. Because we're not bought. That's the
True.
thing that people always misunderstand about guidebooks. They assume that the hotels we recommend and the restaurants and the attractions all paid to be at the book, and that couldn't be farther from the truth. Nobody pays to be in our books, and no entity oversees the editing or the writing. We're all journalists, and what we do nowadays is all of our books are written by local authors. Because we
Oh,
think
yeah.
that you get a real in-depth look. That's
Hmm.
why I write New York.
And I think that's an interesting point. I think my generation's interesting, right? I do remember the days I did travel before smartphones, just about at the
Yeah,
end of that period of time. So I did have to buy a guidebook. So it was a lifeline. You could obviously wing it and try and make it up, which I did in a few places. But it
sure.
was a lifeline, right? But now we transition to this digital age where I do wonder how the new generation are going to travel because they do have the smartphone and I guess rogue websites available in their pocket. Is it genuine? Is it going to be, like you say, bought media or paid for influencer stuff?
Well, most of it
Yeah,
is bought media. I mean, you go to TripAdvisor, there's a whole industry
yeah.
set up to post fake reviews. I
Hmm.
mean, when user-generated reviews have this much power, you'd be crazy if you just left it up to chance. And so there's all kinds of fake reviews, but even when the review is a real one, you're taking advice from a traveler who has been to exactly one hotel. And
Yes.
they may not know that right up the road, there's a place that's cheaper and better. Our writers go to every single damn hotel so they can compare.
Yeah, and that's crucial to get the best value, right, at the trip.
Yeah.
And for you personally, was it always going to be natural to go into the travel industry, or was there any rebellious side of you thinking, no, I'm going to do my own career somewhere else, or was it always travel?
Well, no, I was actually an actor
Oh,
from the
okay,
time I was I guess 12 until 30. I toured the United States in the Broadway company of Les Miserables, and I
okay,
did shows all over the nation. And for a while, I was the voice of Harvey's Bristol Cream, um, doing a very bad British accent. I
okay.
said, "It's terribly, terribly upper crust here." That paid my rent for a full year.
Oh wow, okay. So that the travel was still part of that, I guess that industry there,
So
right?
in between jobs, my father would give me research assignments.
Mm,
He wrote a wonderful book in the 80s called The New World of Travel, which was all about utopian communities, yoga retreats,
mm.
wellness retreats, things that were very, very new there. He always was on the cutting edge. When I was growing up, he ran a tour company, and part of it was about meeting the locals.
Yeah.
And so he had activities set up to get people out of the tourist bubble. In New York City, that meant that once a week for about a year, tourists would come to our house. We were the typical New York family, and I would serve them Ritz crackers with Cheese Whiz and
Oh.
talk to them at the age of 10 or 11. I think it was more real in other cities, but people enjoyed seeing our apartment.
And it's like real connection, like
A
genuine
real
connection.
connection. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it's sometimes posited that that's a new development. No, he was doing that back in the 80s, and he was writing about wellness back in the 90s. So he was always on the cutting edge.
God, that's incredible. Okay. Let's move forward to now, current day. A
Sure.
stat here is that people want to know the brand has sold $75 million roughly in sales. I mean, that's
No,
no.
75 million copies
What's that? Oh, so
over
it's
the
not
years.
that's
So
not
I'm not
dollars.
sure, and it's
Oh,
probably more dollars than that.
I'd hope so. It's not a dollar a book, is it?
Well, actually, when the book started,
Ah,
they were sold for 50 cents. So,
okay, right. Inflation, maybe. Yeah. Okay.
yeah,
Yeah. Sorry, 75 million sales since 1957,
yeah.
which is incredible. Do you cover every country in the world, or is there still some places that are on your list?
No, the Frommer Guides always have had an audience that has been mostly United States and to a lesser extent Canadian citizens.
Okay.
And so the thing about U.S. citizens is, in general, we don't have enough travel time. We don't have enough
Yes.
vacation time.
Hmm.
We take far fewer vacations than Europeans do, than Australians do. And so our books have always been about the places Americans go and written in a very highly curated way because we know that our readers don't want to waste time. So we have star ratings to say what's worth your time. We tell our writers not to pull their punches. So, for example, if they're reviewing a maritime museum, they might write, this book, this attraction is great for people who are really into maritime history. If you get jazzed by seeing replicas of boats in bottles, this is for you. If not, skip it.
Very honest.
And so that's very different than, say, Lonely Planet. Lonely Planet was created for Australians,
Hmm.
and so they have much more concise reviews. They go to a wider array of places than we do. Um, our books are really more for North Americans.
Okay. And for Americans, actually, quick question, random question I'm going to ask. This vacation thing with Americans, what is that about? Like, why is it so low? And why is it still quite low? I mean, I can imagine, okay, fair enough, 40 years ago it was a thing, but still today, every American tells me, yeah, 9, 10 days PTO, and that's all I get. Like, why is this a thing?
Oh, I think in other countries, just like there's socialized health care, there are uh, how many vacation days you get is set by law. Here, you have so many people working two jobs to make ends meet,
Mm,
and not to lose, your health insurance is tied to your job. So heaven forbid you lose your job. You're in big trouble.
yeah.
So I think in certain ways we're behind other Western nations in terms of quality of life.
Is it changing?
No, it's getting worse. It's getting worse. You know who's in office here?
I do, yeah. We're fully aware over here what's going on.
Oh,
Yeah. But
yeah.
I tell you what, growing up in UK and Europe, I think I can probably speak as a whole for a continent, it is baffling that you do get so little. And also with the healthcare thing, we don't understand why you don't have universal healthcare. Those two things are, amongst other things, but those two are two things. If you're traveling, you think, oh, it's weird how you can't just take 5 weeks off. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. It's really a shame. I think it makes our lives here less full.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. And What type of traveler are you?
My husband calls me the ever ready bunny. Did you have those commercials? It's a
No.
commercial for a battery that never stops chugging. So
Oh, like Duracell.
Duracell, yes.
Yes.
So I get up early and I don't finish until I drop into bed. But I'm often working when I'm traveling, sadly. I'm always looking for what the story is because if I'm not working on a guidebook, I'm writing articles for our website, frommers.com.
Hmm.
So but I love it. I think often you have a better time when you're on a pilgrimage of sorts. Even if you're not a travel writer, sometimes like if you're really into teacups and
Hmm.
so you're looking for the best teacups to gather, or you want to taste the best chili con queso and so you're on a search for that, it gives the trip a nice kind of shape. And so my trips, I'm always looking for where the stories are, and often that will take me from 6 in the morning till midnight.
How do you split between, I guess, like personal interest to your work when you travel? If you're chasing a story, how do you fit in, like maybe want to go to a museum or want to go and do a walking tour or a restaurant? Like, how do you mix them in your own trip? Or do you have like one day set for work, one day set for your own personal interests?
Well, I'm very lucky. I mean, tours and museums are part of what I write about. I can't think of anything that, I don't know. I once heard a famous quote, do what you love. And that's what I've been lucky enough to do. I adore going to museums. I could spend hours in a museum, and I often do. And in looking for the story of that museum, I get to enjoy it very fully. Um, I don't know. My husband would say I don't have much of a life, but I enjoy what I'm doing.
What's your favorite part of the travel experience? Is it the meeting like a local guide? Is it going to museums? Is it local food, street markets?
It's always having a connection with somebody that
Mm.
I meet. I was bizarrely enough, I was on radio for 20 years, and one of the things I had to do as a radio host was lead tours of our listeners.
Ah,
And I
okay.
was leading a tour in Taiwan, and we were at what I consider the Disney World of Buddhism. It was this monastery that had a tooth of the Buddha. That was their major relic.
Hmm.
And that wasn't enough, though, to get people to come. So they created this ride. You actually got into little cars and you went through the life of the Buddha. So it
Okay.
really was like an amusement park of Buddhism. And at this place, we were assigned a German monk who lived in Taiwan, a Buddhist monk, spoke perfect English. And he and I, in the course of the day, just started talking about our lives and philosophies. And at the end of the day, I felt like I had made an incredible friend, that I had found a soulmate in a
Mm.
certain way, and that made that trip to Taiwan for me. We unfortunately kind of started ignoring the other people on the tour a little bit. There were two monks leading us around, so
Yeah.
he and I mostly chatted while the other monk led the tour. But that's why I travel, to find soulmates. Maybe I hope that doesn't sound too woo woo, but there's something I once read that we get the same endorphin rush from talking to a stranger as we do from talking to close friends. And so
Mm.
I
I
guess
agree.
I'm in search of that endorphin rush.
I'm totally the same. Yeah, and I think I get it equally either from like a local monk, if giving your example, or even just someone I've met in a hotel or hostel. Right, I think they're both the same experience because you do always learn something new.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much you do learn actually from these like completely different types of people.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, definitely.
And for you, do you think you have a favorite place you go back to?
I really like exploring new places.
Yeah,
For me, that's where the adrenaline comes in.
same. Agreed.
But
Yeah.
my father loved Paris, and I
Mm.
have to say I could go endlessly to Paris, partially because I have a cousin who's very dear to me who lives there. And so I always get to see her and her family, and that's important to me at this late age. But Yeah, I think I prefer going to new places.
Do you know what, Paris? I get told a lot on my podcast that Paris is a favourite. And people do give that weird reaction like, oh, is that cringe? I'm like, no. Paris is one of my favourite cities. You go there, you have no
Oh,
plan, you wander the streets and
yes.
just soak it all in.
And it's not only incredibly beautiful,
Yeah, yeah.
just you just walk out and everything is exquisite. But it's a place where you can have these types of real deep conversations with people. I mean,
Hmm.
this is a society where the talk shows feature book writers.
Yes. Yeah.
It's very much a society that takes the life of the mind seriously. And I love that.
Can you speak French?
Un peu.
Okay.
Not as well as I wish I could.
Yeah, it's one of those languages that I actually find quite hard.
It's
Yeah.
very hard. It's
Yeah,
very
compared to like
hard.
Spanish or German. I think they're easier to pick up, but the French, it's a beautiful
French is,
language, but it's hard to really get it going, I think.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
But technically, I become a citizen in Canada, right? And we get the right to learn French,
Hmm.
becoming a citizen, because obviously
Well,
it's a dual
yes.
language, right? Yeah.
Most Canadians are can speak both French and English. They're taught both in school,
They
right?
are. If you go to
Yeah.
Western Canada, though, not so much so.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
don't speak French. I don't know anyone speaks French here, actually.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Thanks for tuning in to the first half of the episode with Pauline. Have you subscribed, liked the video? Have you hit that 5 stars on the podcast app that you're using right now? If not, hit it right now. It takes 2 seconds. And if you fancy leaving a written review, that's great too. I do love to read them and it helps the podcast too. You can also buy me a coffee for $5 to help the production costs of the podcast. Head to the show notes and it's buymeacoffee.com/winging it. That really helps too. And I do love my coffee. And finally, please spread the word of the Winging It Travel podcast to your friends and family. Get them to tune in and hopefully they'll stay for some more travel wanderlust, great content and inspiration to help them travel in the future. This really is the best way to spread the word of the podcast and give it a bit of traction going forward in competition with all the rest. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get back to the second half with Pauline. Much more wanderlust coming up. Let's go. Okay. I've got an interesting question for you. You might
Okay.
need to think about it. If you were to pick a decade, 10 years, doesn't have to be like 60 to 70, but it could be any 10-year period from the 50s to the present day as the best time to travel, what decade would you pick?
I think it really depends on where you're going. To give an example, I was in Vietnam right before the pandemic, and
Okay.
I watched the entire series by Ken Burns on the Vietnam War.
Yeah, great series.
And oh, great series. And at the end of it, Vietnam is in rubble. It's just,
Hmm.
devastated. And so to see it, I guess it was 6 years ago, when it's really on the rise and thriving, and the people there are so interested to meet Americans. So to me, Vietnam, this is the decade to go to
Yeah.
Vietnam.
Yeah.
To go to maybe Italy, probably the 70s, maybe, before it became incredibly overwhelmed with tourists.
Yes.
Although E.M. Forster, in his book, A Room of the, what was it? A Room with a View, which takes place in Florence in the Victorian era, he talks about over tourism in Florence. So, there are
Can't
certain
win.
places that are just so magical. They've always been overwhelmed with tourists.
But you mentioned COVID. That was an interesting time for places like maybe Florence or Venice, right? They actually got to see their city for the first time
Huh.
in a long time with no tourists and actually see it for what
Wow.
it is as a local, right? Must have been incredible.
Yes and no. I mean, they had some serious lockdowns in Italy,
Yeah.
especially in the Florence area. Florence was badly hit, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, that's one of the
There
first
were a
places,
lot of
wasn't it?
deaths.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But must have been a weird time for them to wander around the city if they can go out and, do the whole distance thing. It must be the first time they've ever saw their place with no tourists. Like, it's
If they
literally
could
just
go
locals.
out.
Yeah.
I had a friend who lived in Barcelona during the pandemic,
Yeah.
and she was out. You got like a script of paper, and you were only allowed out a couple of hours a day. I
Oh,
mean,
wow.
if
Huh.
even that, I think it was like an hour a day. She was allowed to go out shopping several times a week, and other than that, she was expected to be in her apartment.
Oh,
A
wow.
neighbor loaned her a cat so she wouldn't be go out of her mind with loneliness.
I didn't realize it's that strict.
It was very strict in Spain. I know about that. And I
Oh,
think it was
wow.
pretty strict in Italy too.
Yeah, maybe it's a European thing. Yeah, here there's no restrictions on going out. There was like
Right.
queuing up for shops and stuff like that, but here it's just yeah, if you want to walk to the park, you can just go in your little group and just keep your distance. Yeah,
Right. Well, I was in New York. It was rough here in New
yeah,
York.
yeah, yeah. I
We
can
were one
imagine.
of the first hit in the US, and so yeah, we were just terrified to go out. But
Yeah, different times. Do you think it's changed the travel industry since COVID kind of dissipated a little bit and it's come back to normal times? Do you think travel has changed?
I do think so. I think people are realizing that that things you took for granted can go away. We saw a lot more people taking what are called bucket list trips, these big,
Mm.
expensive trips to places that in the past maybe they would have put off, and now they realize, no, this can all go away. We need to live life now. So, yeah, I think travel was supercharged right after the pandemic, and it still feels like it's on a good high, because of that, I think.
Yeah. Do you think it'll last longer, this little high we've got right now, or do you think it'll dissipate soon? I guess that depends if there's like a recession or something.
I think it's all dependent on the economy. Yeah,
Yeah,
who
that's a big one,
knows?
right? You can't underestimate that, I suppose, can you? No,
Yeah.
absolutely not. Is there a country or place that gave you culture shock?
Oh, so many places. I'm trying to think. The first time I was in China,
Oh yeah,
um, that was, I was in Shanghai and it looked like a place of the future. It just was a forest of skyscrapers. I live in New York City. You'd think I'd be used to
yeah.
this, but no. I mean, it really felt like it was in the future. And you could, the first time, oh my, and also the first time I was in India, um, I've never been nervous to travel, but just figuring out how to cross the street
Hmm. Yeah.
was mind-boggling just because there was no clear way not to get hit. Crossing the street, and I remember the first night washing my hair and the suds coming out black because the pollution was so intense. And yet at the same time, people were so kind to us, talking to us, asking where we were from. Everybody assumed we were British
Oh.
because they said Americans usually only go out in groups. They only had met Americans on group tours in the
Mm.
past, so they assumed I had to be British.
That's an interesting take. So they
Yeah,
obviously meet a
but
lot
I
of British
don't.
people just on their own.
Right, clearly I don't have a British accent, so.
Yeah, I do see a few Brits on TikTok actually traveling China. It's quite a popular
Hmm.
thing to showcase because it is such a it's an interesting one to backpack or go solo, right? Because like you say, you got culture shock, and I can imagine I would as well. Like the working of things out, especially if you don't know the language.
Yeah, the second time I was there for the Olympics because
Oh yeah.
Frommer's did the guidebook for the Olympics, and I was there to appear on TV. And uh, this all happened at the last moment, and they had thrown up all of these hotels very, very quickly. And, you take a very long plane ride, and I was exhausted, and I lay down on my bed. And it was the most uncomfortable. It didn't feel like a bed. And I realized, oh my goodness, this isn't a mattress. It's the box spring. Because they had built the hotel so fast, they put half the rooms had box springs, half had mattresses.
Wow, I think I've
So I
stayed in a few
moved
of
to
those
another.
beds in my time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. For your travel guides, do they appeal to a certain type of traveler or do they appeal to everyone?
Well, we felt like, first of all, my father and I took back ownership of the guides about 12 years ago, and
Oh,
I
okay,
can't legally discuss how that happened, but
sure,
uh, we at that point felt like there was a lot of information out there for super luxury travelers,
of course,
and
yeah.
there was a lot of information for backpackers.
Hmm.
But there really wasn't much for the people in the middle. And so we very specifically re-engineered the guides so that they would be for middle-class travelers. So we tell our authors 20% of the listings should be for high-end things because people want to splurge every once in a while.
Yeah.
20% of the listings should be for budget folks, hostels and cheap restaurants and the like, and the rest right down the middle. And so I guess that's for everybody. I would say our books are for the middle class.
That's an interesting take. You're totally right about that, though. There's lots, including my own podcast sometimes as well, for budget, because I guess that's what I did traditionally when I
Yeah,
traveled. I don't know if that's an age thing, but in your 20s and maybe early 30s, you kind of think you want to save as much as you can. And then there's loads of luxury, as we all know, because some people got extreme amounts of money to spend.
sure.
But you're right. There is not really a thing for middle.
There's not much for the middle. And,
Yeah,
and we at heart, I'm a budget traveler. I
same.
mean,
Yeah.
to me, the idea of spending an insane amount on a hotel is ridiculous because you're unconscious for most of your time in the hotel.
Mm,
So, why overpay for that? Unless it's a resort, where the
sure.
hotel is your vacation. But for most part, if it's well located, so I'm not commuting too long, I'll stay anywhere.
Yeah, same. How do you implement certain strategies to make sure it's mid-range? Like, do you go for I guess, I don't know, is it 3-4 star hotels? Do you go for middle of the road, like restaurants? How do you find or commit to saying something is mid-range?
Well, we look at the prices.
Okay, based on
It's
price.
all based on the prices.
Yeah.
Unlike many other guidebook series, we give exact pricing in our guidebooks.
Okay.
And so we do not ever ask the hotel what their prices are because they quote you rack rates, and that's a fantasy.
Yes.
They don't exist. So we look at the same booking engines that travelers are looking at, and we come up with a price range from that. We also give all kinds of tips to save money. Like right now, there's an industry that is profiling travelers and profiling consumers in general.
Mm-hmm.
So they know that if you live in a certain zip code or area code, you probably drive this kind of car and you
Mm-hmm.
spend this much on your groceries. And it's pretty clear that entities like the airlines are using this information to
Mm-hmm.
tailor the prices that are served to us to what they know that we can pay. And so I've become a big fan of virtual private networks.
Yes, VPNs, as I'm going to ask. Yeah.
You can hide, who you are as you're searching.
That's a great tip. I didn't even
Yeah.
think
And
about
this
that.
is happening not just in airfares. This is also happening for attractions. In writing the New York City guidebook, I realized that a lot of the attractions in New York, like the Empire State Building, Top of the Rock, Circle Line tours, you go to their websites, you no longer see the price. Instead, you put in a time and then they show you the price for that time. And so I started doing all of this research, just putting in time after time after time, because I realized that for say the observation decks,
Yeah.
it was $20 more expensive every single day to go at 5 p.m., which is the golden hour when you can take beautiful
Indeed.
photos, than if you went at 10 a.m. And there's no way you'd know that
No, you wouldn't.
unless you
No.
bought a Frommer's guide, because we're doing the damn research so we can give you what the patterns are and let you know that there are these crazy patterns.
So how is AI going to influence your brand? Is it going to help or hinder you, do you think?
Oh, AI is killing us. AI is killing us, not the books. Actually, I think AI has unleashed such a flood of crap on the
Yeah,
internet
of course. Yeah.
that people are returning to books. So book
Ah,
sales are good,
yeah.
but they've stolen all of our copyrighted
Yeah.
material. So on the web, not just us, the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Toronto Star, I mean, every single major media site out there has lost 40 to 60% of their traffic in the last year because people now are going to Google and just reading those damn little paragraphs that
Yeah.
appear. And that's hurting all of media.
Yeah, it's a real big worry, actually. I was speaking to a few bloggers and they've been decimated. Yeah.
Decimated.
Yeah. And I think they're actually generally worried. I think obviously before you might be worried with a Google update and that's something to work with, but now this AI thing is crushing it. Yeah.
Well, Google is about to move to linkless search.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm a member of something called the News Media Alliance here in the United States, which is an alliance of every single publisher in the
Okay.
country,
Yeah.
magazines, newspapers, web. And we are considering filing for an injunction against it, although it's hard to prove damages because we don't really know what the
Yes.
damages will be.
Yeah.
We assume they'll be great.
God,
So
worrying
thank goodness
times.
we have the books. We'd be in big trouble. I mean, Frommers.com, we were one of the very first websites on the web to deal with travel. We existed
Mm.
before Expedia did.
Hmm.
Um, and so, the web has always been a big part of what we did. But now I'm not sure. It's an interesting time.
And how do you think, offshoot question, AI will affect travel as a whole? Do you think it's going to be a hindrance to the experience that people maybe are trying to seek? Like, for example, I'll give you an example. I keep thinking these AI, I guess they're like companies now where you can chuck in like how many travelers there are, what's your budget, location, and stuff to do, and that can like give you a whole list of things, which is I guess fine to book. It could also help you find resources, right? And then people will probably go on YouTube these days. YouTube's quite big. Maybe watch 10 videos of where you're going. I'm thinking, bloody hell, like before I know it, I've seen the place. I just wonder if that's affecting the actual genuine experience of some people. I guess I'm mainly thinking newer generations where they watch and read, or no, probably watch more stuff before they go and then
Yeah.
think it's probably not as good as they thought it was going to be. I don't know.
Oh, I don't know if they think that. My daughters watch a lot of videos before
Right.
they travel, and sometimes they find interesting things, and sometimes they find that they've just been sold a bill of goods because the
Mm.
YouTuber is being paid to make a
Oh, yeah, of
place
course.
better than it is.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I tend to be very cynical. I think that the forces that are now shaping what you find on user-generated
Mm.
sites on the web will find a way to tilt the balance on AI.
Yeah.
I think that Marriott and Hilton and Air Canada and the tourist boards and all these folks have a genuine interest in shaping the way AI delivers its responses. And I'm sure there will be ways to do that.
Mm.
Um, I'm sure it's happening now because if you think about it, more travel content on the web is marketing
Oh,
than
yeah.
is journalism.
Yeah. Oh,
So
yeah. Yeah.
if AI is scraping all of it, it's giving you the marketer's point of view. And so that's, I think, a danger. But
Okay.
who knows? Maybe it'll be very good. I don't know. Apparently, it's not making any money. And frankly, from um, a green point of view, it's terrible.
Oh,
The
yeah.
amount of energy it
Oh, yeah.
uses. I was just on a panel with a writer from the Sierra Club, and he was saying that a lot of coal plants that had been decommissioned
Mm.
are being put back online. Coal-generated electricity so they're using the oldest, worst technology to create enough power for AI just because it needs apparently, if you ask a question on Google, just a regular question, that's like 20 seconds worth of putting on a light bulb. If you go to AI and ask that same question, it's the same amount of energy as having a light bulb on for 20 minutes.
God. Wow.
So it's exponentially worse.
I guess in theory, AI would read or go through everything it knows, which is basically the whole internet, right? And then pick out your answer. So it's going to need so much energy and power to get through, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Because of the
absolutely.
machine learning and language learning as well.
And it's
God.
not making them any money for the AI companies yet, apparently.
Yeah, not yet. No. I think
So,
that's why Musk is a bit annoyed with OpenAI. But yeah, we'll see how that goes. Which goes on nicely to our podcast, right? Because let's talk positivity about the industry for a
sure.
second. We
Yes.
both do.
Sorry.
Yeah, no.
I
We
get
both
dark.
we both do travel podcasts, which I do believe at the minute is a genuine resource. Could be any. I could say any industry. There. Let's stick to travel. For travel, I think we would obviously script and talk about our own things we want to talk about. They're going to be genuine, real life experiences. And I think if anyone's listening, I think they can probably trust us to give what we think is the most authentic and correct answer for anywhere we're recommending or any types of travel, right? I think it's a good space to be in.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know I try to. I mean, I came to podcasting in an old-fashioned way. I was on radio for 20 years,
Hmm.
and then radio became all politics. So I created this podcast to keep my radio audience. But it's really nice. On radio, I had to talk in different chunks. There was 11 minutes before the first commercial break, and
Yes.
then 7 minutes, then another seven. Whereas a podcast, I can just let it flow, and whatever works, works, which is very freeing.
And tell the listeners of your podcast and why you started it as well.
Well, the Frommer's podcast has been, it was our radio show, which
Hmm.
was then on computer as a podcast. Now it's simply a podcast. And I started to introduce people to the trends we're seeing in travel, to talk about destinations you may not have heard of, to interview authors who have really interesting takes on travel. Like I'll soon be doing an interview with a wonderful writer named Jeff Greenwald, who uh, went around the world 30 years ago, never not touching land or sea. So he didn't fly anywhere.
Okay. Yeah.
He's updated it now, that book for the current age. And
Mm.
that's a fascinating way to travel. It's a greener way to travel.
Hmm.
Um, and so I have great authors like Jeff on. I just try to keep it fun and interesting and informative.
And how often do you release an episode? And what
Every
day is
Sunday
that?
morning.
Sunday morning. Okay, so
Every Sunday it
people
comes
get
out.
up for their coffee and it's there waiting for them, right?
Yeah, yeah. I have some people who exercise to it, which is interesting.
That's very interesting. And what do you hope the podcast will do for the brand? Do you think it would be an extension of your books, or is it completely separate, just conversations? Like, how do you think it will help your brand?
Well, we do often feature, not always, but we often feature our guidebook writers because they're embedded all around the
Mm,
world.
yeah.
Like when the fires happened in Maui a couple of years ago, we got Jeannie Cooper, who is one of our wonderful Hawaii authors, and she came on about 2 weeks later and discussed, could you still go to Maui? What exactly was happening
Mm,
there with travel? Because it looked like the whole island was on fire, and it really was just one portion. But unfortunately, it was the portion where a lot of the workers lived. And so what happened for 2 years after the fires was a lot of hotels closed half their rooms because they didn't have enough staff to fully staff the entire
ah,
hotel,
yeah.
and raised their prices to be as if
Mm,
they had the whole hotel open. So Maui, after the fires, became one of the most expensive places on earth to go. And she was able to explain why that was happening, which I thought was very interesting. And also what was lost, what was still there. She was reporting from Maui.
amazing. I know you've had some guests that have been on my podcast. So yeah, I think you had my friend Shafiq from the UK, Shafiq
Oh,
Meji.
yes.
Yes.
Yes. He wrote a wonderful book about um, uh, the UK in South America, UK
Yes.
influence,
Small Earthquakes. Yeah. It's a
which
great
was
book. Yeah.
fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he wrote one about Bolivia called Crossed Bolivia.
Oh, I
Uh,
haven't read that one.
that's another great book. Yeah, he's a South American expert, but he's come on about 3 times. Yeah, great guy. He has a great way of looking at travel, I think, and a great writer as well. So
Yeah.
you have
Yeah,
similar
that's
guests to me, which
terrific.
are great people to speak to, but also trusted voices in the industry.
People who aren't there to sell anything, except maybe
Yes,
their books, you know,
but
which is
he
fine.
came up with the idea to write the book, right? It's not like someone's told him to write a book. So yeah, it's
Right.
completely genuine. Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah. I do a YouTube channel. It's quite interesting about the money thing, right? Because you I spoke to Mark Walters, another previous guest. He's got like 1.2 million subscribers, but he prides himself on honest travel advice. And he explained to me on
Mm.
the podcast episode about YouTube, he's never taken a paid
Ah.
like episode. He says, "Well, I can't endorse something I don't like."
Sure.
But he
Right.
said, but you'll find a lot of creators who are full time, I guess, making a living out of it. They do take those payments, so you've got to be careful who you trust in the industry, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Where can people find your guidebooks, social medias, podcast? Give us all the links and I'll put them in the show
Okay.
notes.
Our guidebooks are available wherever books are sold. I'm a big fan of independent bookstores,
Yes.
so that's where I would suggest you look first, but you'll also find us on barnesandnoble.com, on amazon.com, fromers.com, has different articles every single damn day of the year, about travel trends, about unusual things you need to know to travel better, money saving strategies. I think our most popular one now, one of our editors went to New Zealand and brought with him 10 different travel pillows. And he
Oh,
tested
okay.
each one for an hour of the flight going there and back and came up with a clear winner and a very witty article about why the one he picked was the winner. We have Frommers.com. We're on Instagram at Frommers, Frommers. We're on Blue Sky, and we're also on Facebook.
Okay. And the podcast is on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all
Um,
the usual apps, I'd imagine.
and Voyescape.
And voyescape.com,
Yeah,
the same network that we're both on. Okay.
right.
That's great. I'll put them in the show notes. I'm going to finish the episode with my quickfire travel questions.
Okay.
These are your favorite things you've seen on your own travels.
Oh,
You
boy.
might not like some of the questions, but I'm going to ask them anyway.
Okay.
Your top 3 favorite places.
Well, top 3. Well, New York City, since she's my muse. I guess Paris, and I fell in love with Vietnam. I'll put
Ah,
Vietnam in that list.
okay. What about 3 places you've not traveled to that are next on your hit list?
I've never been to Antarctica.
Okay.
I'd really, really like to go to South Africa. I've been to other parts of Africa, but never there. And I spent a lot of time reading the novels and plays that came out of there. So I'd like to go to South Africa. And I hear very good things about Algeria. I'm really
Ah,
interested to go to Algeria.
not talked about that much.
No, I got to speak at the Century Club, which is a club of people who have been to 100 or more countries,
Yeah.
and everybody there was raving about Algeria.
Wow. Well, there it goes on my list then. Okay. If you could live somewhere tomorrow for a year that's not your home country, where are you going to live?
I guess I would. That's a hard one. I think I maybe South Africa. I haven't been there before, so I can't really say for sure. Or Portugal, or I hear Montenegro is amazing for expats. Maybe Montenegro.
Okay. What about 3 top tips for saving money when traveling?
Use a VPN. You want to hide who you are. Um, uh, uh, don't, um, don't assume you'll have the best experience in the most expensive place. Often, going to the most expensive place makes you more filled with complaints when things go wrong. I think you have a better mind space when you're there saving money. And what's another good money saving tip? And buy a travel guide. You will save with the tips we give. You will save the cost of the book and
And more.
more, and have a
Absolutely.
better trip.
Okay, that's amazing. Okay. What about top 3 favorite cuisines?
Japanese, I guess Japanese. I very much like Spanish food and I guess Vietnamese food.
Yeah, that's good. Okay. Are you a sunrise or sunset person?
Sunset.
Do you know that's the most popular answer? I always think it'd be sunrise, but hey,
Who
what do
gets
I
up
know?
that early?
Yeah, I know. That's the reason, but I thought something quite
Yeah.
magical about the day is the start of the day. Oh, who knows? Okay. What about, let's go with your top 3 favorite experiences, like activities that you had when traveling.
I went to Cartagena once,
Oh,
and I was writing an article about tours you could take there, and I took a salsa dancing
amazing.
tour
Yeah.
where you learned how to do the dance, and you went to different clubs around the city. And I loved it so much, I ended up being the last person on the tour to leave. And I felt guilty because the guide was out with me until like 4 a.m. We started with 20, and then it was just him and me. And he said, I'd be out dancing anyway. It's okay. Yeah, everywhere you go in Cartagena, there's music.
Yeah,
I just
love it.
loved that. I loved Colombia. So that was one. As a journalist, I got to go to the Mercedes-Benz factory because they no longer make cars. They've been making engines for the last 20
Oh,
years.
okay. Didn't know that.
And I got to visit with the engineers who were creating a new propeller. Most propellers move very, very fast and take in lots of air. They re-engineered it to move much slower, but take in as much air,
Oh,
and thus use much less fuel. And the things they were working on, being in the presence of these incredibly smart people who were trying to solve the world's problems. As a journalist, as a travel writer, that was one of my most exciting trips. And I'm not very science literate. I never was good at math, so the mental challenge of it all was very exciting and often off-putting. I had to, grab people and pull them to the side and say, okay, you said this. I don't understand it. Please explain it again. And they would. So that was one, two, and gosh, I guess I have two daughters, and I think all of the trips with them, if I can make that,
sure.
seeing the world through their eyes as they've been growing up has been a real gift.
Okay. If you could sit somewhere tomorrow with a cup of coffee or a glass of wine, whatever you want, and just watch the world go by for an afternoon, where are you going to sit?
Somewhere I haven't been before. I'm not sure where. Somewhere with good wine, maybe Montenegro.
Oh, okay. Has there been anywhere on your new country or new place list that you've had for years and you just can't get there?
Oh, so many places.
What's the longest one that's been on the list?
Probably South Africa.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. One more question. 2 sentences you get here as to why someone should take the leap to go and travel, maybe somewhere a bit different outside of the comfort zone. And if a bit scared, what 2 sentences would you give as advice as to why they should go?
You will be dead very soon. Why not experience the wider world?
Okay. That's great. Pauline, thanks for coming on the podcast. It's been a great chat. Very
Thank
engaging. I've
you.
loved it.
Oh, thank you. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you so much. Thank you.